Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. I sure am. I'm looking outside the window right now. The weather is just so beautiful. The sky is crystal clear, not really reflecting or a foreshadowing of what we're going to expect in the next couple of days across the Midwest and Upper Plains. A big snowstorm will be occurring in the cold sector, but also very heavy rainfall for a lot of places, including my area, where they don't necessarily need it. But at least we're not getting snow, in Illinois or Iowa in September, late September. So speaking of this winter storm, I'm making another video about it. I made one yesterday, and the reason for that is, well, because it's just a quick, it's upcoming fairly quickly, and updates are coming in as well pretty often. So I have to keep you guys updated. This could possibly be the earliest winter storm named by the Weather Channel ever, and they haven't been going with the series for awfully too long, since I think 2011 or 12. I think 2012, that's when they started naming winter storms, and since then this could be the earliest winter storm ever. So wow, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to say, about this magnitude of the storm. But before we get into this video, consider subscribing, consider liking the video. I make updates about, obviously, winter storms, pattern changes, the winter, the fall, spring, summer. I mean, all seasons. I do it all throughout. So consider subscribing, consider dropping a comment and a like. So we start off by looking at the GFS MSL PN precip. Let's go to hour 6. As of now, we have this tiny, small trough across the eastern U.S. This is bringing in chillier temperatures across the eastern portion of the country. No snow for the east at this point. Notice how we could receive a pretty big rain dose across the Midwest with this storm that's out ahead of this trough that's going to dive into the western half of the United States. And this drags a sort of a front across the U.S. And notice how that brings heavy rain to Michigan, Illinois, possibly Indiana, Wisconsin, Missouri, and also severe weather threat and across western Illinois, southeastern Iowa, western Kansas, or eastern Kansas, northern Missouri, and those areas you could see will be receiving some severe weather tomorrow across Friday. So definitely that is something to keep an eye on for. But the main story of this video is obviously this huge snowstorm that, again, everything just comes together perfectly for it. We see the trough in the jet stream kind of dig its way into the western U.S. I mean, yes, it's the west, yes, it's the mountains. Some people may not have a good kind of a reference point as to when the average first snowfall for many of these locations is, just because it's in the mountains. It's still way above, it's still way ahead of average in terms of the first snow. Some locations that will be seeing 5 to 10 inches of snow over the weekend, their first snowfall is in late October. A first major snowfall is late or early, even in November, but they could be seeing snow this weekend, late September. So this is historic by all means. This could be breaking many records in terms of, not only being extremely early, but the thing is, this thing is a powerful beast, and it's one thing, let alone to get inches of snow way ahead of time, September, but it's another thing to get feet, 3 to 4 feet as expected across a widespread area across Montana. And yes, given it's elevated, in elevated areas, the mountainous areas, still, again, I can't, emphasize this enough, it is still ahead of schedule in many areas, extremely ahead of schedule. So the ski resorts, they could, benefit from this, I guess, if you will. Not necessarily because it may snow 3 to 4 feet, but the pattern may warm up and that may quickly melt. So they may open up for a day or two or maybe a week's time. But it seems as if this pattern won't be too favorable for many more snowstorms, it seems, across the areas where some of the snow will be occurring. So you can see it's just a beast. It comes from the Pacific, drags a ton of Gulf moisture into it. Heavy rain on the south side, but the snow really starts intensifying. Yellowstone gets some snow. Here's like that cold front of the system dragging right there. Notice how the 540 line is right there, right along right there. And this would bring very, very below average temperatures for places like Seattle and Portland. show you their temperatures in just a minute, but notice how this storm becomes huge as it moves out into the plains. And here's some tight gradient. We have still that heavy snow pounding Montana and southern Saskatchewan and Alberta and Manitoba. Also seeing some heavy snow out of this Big Bear Lake. I think that's what it's called. This big lake over here, seeing again heavy snow rates, very impressive, and that's what we usually see with either fall time snowstorms that are still fueled with the summer moisture available from the Gulf. We see those snowfall rates at insane amounts. Or we see that with spring storms. I mean, for a matter of fact, here in Chicago this spring, we had 2 late season snowstorms, and many people may think probably snow didn't accumulate much. It was warm, the sun angles high. Well, these storms also have a kind of like a trick up their sleeve, if you will. They tap into some of the moisture in the springtime that's already coming from the Gulf of Mexico and from the tropics, and they just become supercharged. I mean, we received thunder snow in the springtime, not just March. I mean, I think it was late April we received so much snow. I think it was 8 inches in one event. It was falling at insane rates. The cement was warm. Yes, everything was warm. Still accumulated a lot, and the snowplows had to come out. But basically, you could see that after the storm passes, the remaining kind of moisture of it turns into a banding of kind of almost like a river. You could see like a stream right there. That would send heavy rain from Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska into Wisconsin, and that will most likely dwindle down pretty quickly, but it could still bring some flooding to these areas, especially since many of these areas have been dealing with some heavy rain. But afterwards, again, it seems like conditions will, at least come back to normal for the West, not necessarily be so freaking chilly like they are showing right now. I mean, there will be extremely chilly temperatures. Let's go to the anomalies, and I want to show, or the 2-meter temperature shaded, and I want to show you some of these temperatures that are expected for the West. Very chilly. Some locations are going to be going close to 0 degrees after the snow, so that is definitely something to point out. Places like Seattle typically don't see snow really that much throughout the whole winter. They will be experiencing lows and highs around the 30s, around the 40s and 50s, which is very chilly, possibly even some 30s for the Seattle area. So extremely below average temperatures for the West. This is kind of like a polar vortex, but for the West. You can't even see it really reflected on these 2-meter temperature shaded because, at this time of the year, none of this blue should be even on here, really. Only some higher elevations. Here, in this case, it's showing over a broad area, and showing in really warm temperatures across the east. It gets cooled off to a certain extent. We don't see that heat being as oppressive as it has been in the past week or two. So if you live in the south or the eastern U.S., you will get some relief from this from this system. And I'll show you the snowfall totals in just a minute. I know you want me to show you that, but let me quickly just show you these 2-meter temperature anomalies. So again, 20 to 25 degrees below average. Look at that. Very chilly across the West. Very warm across the east, though. I got to point that out again. And again, at the end of the forecasting period, it seems like that those below average temperatures could move slightly into the eastern U.S. Doesn't seem to be in such a fashion like they were showing earlier, the models, but definitely you could see it's more of a pattern where it's kind of undecided, which is way better than what we've been seeing, which was a decisive, way above average temperature pattern for the east. Now it's more of a couple days could be below, couple days could be above average, and it really depends on where a certain storm or system tracks. So definitely on a better path for those that have been seeing the heat in the south. Definitely some cool off is on its way. To what extent still remains unknown, but that's a whole kind of the whole point of this. If we were to know the extent of the cool off, then that would be that wouldn't be even a prediction. We would just tell you right off the bat. But I don't know if that really made sense what I just said there. But looking at the GEFS ensembles, this is basically a bunch of models combined. And to what truth this holds, these below average temperatures, we don't really know. I mean, in general, consensus is for some chillier temperatures to come through. Whether or not this will hold true, we'll have to see. But definitely the heat seems to be easing. Let's go to the European model and quickly show you Actually, you know what? Let me just show you the snowfall totals because this was supposed to be a snowstorm video. Sometimes I just get carried away by what I do, and I just start looking at the pattern because that's what I like to do. Let's look at the GFS and let's go to total snowfall. And again, 3 to 4 feet across, quite a good chunk of the area. Let's just zoom in onto the northwestern U.S. and look at that. If I had a cursor that was showing how much snow was in these areas, that would be around the 40-50 range. I mean, those whites, yeah, that's above 48. And you can see it's a good path right there across the mountains and into. This is northwestern Montana. Obviously here it's more elevated, you could tell, but definitely 40-50 inches right off this to start off the season. Ski resorts will love that. But notice also how it moves out into the the lowlands. I mean, these areas aren't really too awfully elevated. It's just that they're below average. And notice how it's 20 to 18. 10 to 20 inches of snow still across those lowlands, so that's still very impressive. In northwestern Wyoming, the Grand Tetons, Wyoming, also receiving several inches, if not up to a foot or maybe two in isolated areas. So definitely a snowstorm that will bring snow very early to parts of these locations and disrupt travel. I mean, there's people that live up there. For some it may seem surprising, and there's major interstates that run through the passes. There's many passes that are important here for travel, and they could get absolutely hindered by this snowstorm. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. See ya. Bye.